sit down because this news is heavy. A piece of behind-the-scenes information just dropped from Toei that is leaving the Dragon Ball community in an uproar. And if what is being said is true, the Dragon Ball Super remake, that project we had been waiting for months, may have been partially cancelled. Yes, you heard that right. Two of the most important arcs of the franchise. Two arcs that defined an entire generation of fans may simply not happen in the remake. And the worst part, the team at Toei would already be moving to another project, leaving those arcs behind. This, folks, is huge. It completely changes what we were expecting for 2026 and 2027. And in this video, I'm going to explain everything based on what Geekdom 101 brought, what Phoenix reported, and what makes sense considering how Toei works. So for those who appreciate sources, there you go. Stay until the end because there is a detail in this story that very few people are discussing, but it makes everything make sense. Before we dive into the chaos, let me set the stage. The Dragon Ball Super remake was announced with the promise of remaking the initial arcs of the Super era with modern visual quality, revamped animation, and elements from Toyotaro's manga incorporated into the story. The idea was simple and ambitious. Take everything that came out rough in 2015, when the production was rushed and the animation turned out inconsistent, and deliver a definitive version. A version that fans could watch from start to finish without that visual discomfort of the first episodes. And the original plan, at least what the community understood, was to remake everything from Beerus to the Tournament of Power and then jump straight into the Moro Arc, the long-awaited Galactic Patrol arc. That was the dream, the perfect roadmap. But then behind-the-scenes information started to surface, and that is where things get interesting. Geekdom 101, who has direct sources within the production, had already confirmed about a month ago that the Beerus Arc, meaning Battle of Gods, is practically finished. The most recent information from Phoenix puts this arc at around 95% completion, which basically means just polishing, dubbing, and audio mixing. This arc will have 6 episodes and is confirmed to release this year in October. So far so good, everything as expected. The problem begins when we look at the next arcs in line. The Resurrection of Frieza arc, or the Golden Frieza arc, is around 80 to 85% complete. And here is where expectations start to break. Geekdom initially predicted that this arc would have between 6 and 7 episodes, but Phoenix is saying it will be even shorter, only 5 episodes. 5. To give you an idea of what that means, it is practically an extended version of Golden Frieza with a bit of new material from the anime reused. The difference is not absurd, but it shows that Toei is cutting a lot, eliminating filler, tightening the pace, which in my opinion is good. The faster we can get to the new story, the better. But rushing an anime production is rarely a good sign. And now comes the part where the red alert starts flashing. The Champa arc, also known as the tournament between universes 6 and 7, is around 60 to 65% complete. The original estimate given by a producer directly to Geekdom back in January was 10 to 12 episodes, but the new report indicates that this arc may have only 8 episodes. 8. This means a lot of fights are going to be sped up, a lot of development is going to be cut, the pacing will be very different from the original. Some people will miss it, but it is already clear that Toei's strategy is to trim as much as possible, deliver the essentials, and move forward. And folks, while I was recording this video, another bomb dropped. That is why you always have to drop a like, because I am always watching and bringing the hottest news in the best format for you. Meanwhile, Geekdom 101 had raised the possibility, and then a new confirmation arrived and changed everything. Anime AJ, who for those who do not know is one of the most respected animators and sources in the industry, recognized globally for the accuracy of the information he releases, posted a reply on Twitter that basically confirmed the worst possible scenario for everyone who was expecting the complete remake when he was directly asked whether the rumors about the Goku Black Arc and the Tournament of Power not being made were true. In this remake, his answer was surgical. He said that yes, it is more or less true, that the entire team was moved to the Moro Arc at the beginning of the month, that the production of Moro is in full steam, and that the focus is now 100% on the production of the Moro Arc. In other words, it stopped. The Future Trunks arc and the Tournament of Power arc are not being remade at this moment, period. Now, to be fair to the information, Anime AJ left the door slightly open, and that is exactly what I think as well. He said that this does not mean those arcs will never be revisited after Moro is done, but he was very clear on one point. The remake will not go beyond the Universe Tournament before the arrival of Moro. In plain terms, what is coming out for everyone in the next months and years is Beerus, Resurrection of F, and Champa. After that, a direct jump to Moro, and we do not know if we will get arcs in between, which in my opinion would be bizarre. First, this remake is already a bizarre idea. Just release the Moro arc and call it a day. But starting a remake and doing it halfway is even more bizarre. And let us stop to think about what this really means, because it is more serious than it looks. The Future Trunks arc with Goku Black is not just any arc, it is one of the most beloved arcs of the Super era. It is the arc that introduced Rose, that brought back the adult Trunks in one of the most iconic versions of the character, that presented Zamasu and the entire discussion about divine justice, corrupt gods, temporary Potara fusion, and it is an arc that is award-winning in popularity. And the Tournament of Power, folks, is probably the most iconic iconic event of the modern Dragon Ball era. It is where Ultra Instinct appears for the first time, where Jiren enters the story, where Frieza has that redemption arc that everyone loves. It is where Goku and Vegeta give everything they have, and ignoring these two arcs in the remake is simply unthinkable from a narrative standpoint, and that is where the problem that nobody is properly discussing comes in. Think about it with me. The main goal of the remake, just like what happened with Hunter x Hunter in 2011, is to bring new fans to the franchise. It is to take people who never watched Dragon Ball or who stopped at Z and give them a modern gateway with updated animation, better pacing, without that exaggerated filler from the 2000s and 10s. That is the declared objective of Toei. Now answer me, how is a new fan going to understand the Moro Arc if he jumped straight from the Battle of Gods to the Galactic Patrol? How is this new fan going to know who Hit is, going to understand Vegeta's development, going to understand where Ultra Instinct came from, going to understand why Goku has that specific friendship with characters who appear in the Moro Arc? It is going to become a narrative mess of epic proportions. And this is exactly the same mistake that happened with Dragon Ball Kai on Nickelodeon in the United States. When Kai ended at Cell and the audience jumped straight to GT, without the final chapters, without Majin Buu, it created an entire generation of fans who grew up with absurd gaps in their understanding of the story. Characters, transformations, crucial arcs were simply erased from these people's memories. And now it seems like Toei is about to repeat that same mistake, but on a global scale and with even more important arcs, because the Goku Black and Tournament of Power arcs are not secondary arcs, they are central arcs, arcs that define the visual and narrative identity of modern Dragon Ball. And the most curious detail about this is the reason. Why did Toei make this decision? The answer is simple and somewhat frustrating. Rushing. The production of the Moro Arc was taking too long to start, and the main animation team was reassigned to speed up pre-production. In other words, Toei prioritized new content over the remake, which perhaps should have been done from the very beginning without this remake. And look, from the perspective of someone who has been waiting for Moro for 8 years, this is a victory. But let us be fair here, because this story has two sides and it would be dishonest of me to only point out the bad side. Let us go to the good side, because it exists and it is big. If the entire team was reassigned to Moro, that means one very specific thing. The production of the Galactic Patrol arc is in full steam at this very moment, and for anyone who has been following Dragon Ball since 2018, when the original Super anime ended at the Tournament of Power, this is practically a miracle. Even though I find it very bizarre, it makes me a little glad that we might see the Galactic Patrol arc sooner, because they might not do the Black Arc or the Tournament of Power remake. 8 years, folks. There are fans who entered the franchise, got married, had children, and are still waiting for Moro to arrive on television. So when Anime AJ says that the Moro production is fully operational, that is news that deserves to be celebrated. The current forecast, according to the sources, is that the Moro arc arrives at the end of 2027 or the beginning of 2028. And look, that is much earlier than a lot of people expected if the schedule had continued the way it was before, with the full remake first. And now, let us go to the other side of the coin, because it also carries weight here. From a production standpoint, what Toei is doing makes sense. Toei learned the hard way in 2015 what happens when you try to do too many things at the same time. The original Dragon Ball Super was a production disaster, with episodes coming out at absurdly low quality, with that infamous Goku versus Frieza episode redrawn by a single animator in a rush. Toei did not want to repeat that mistake, so focusing all resources on one project at a time is, in reality, a responsible approach. It is less romantic for the fan, but it is smart for the final quality. And now the part where I want to hear your opinion in the comments, because this is the question that will define the future of modern Dragon Ball. What is more worth it? Having a complete remake from Beerus to the Tournament of Power, with revamped visual quality and manga elements incorporated, but waiting 2 or 3 more years for Moro, or having Moro arrive sooner, but with 2 central arcs, Goku Black and the Tournament of Power, being left out of the remake, possibly forever. Because let us be realistic, even with Anime AJ saying those arcs could be revisited later, the chance of that actually happening is low. When a production has already moved on to another project, going back to redo old arcs becomes something that stays in the realm of maybe someday, and maybe someday in the anime industry generally means never. My personal bet, I believe Toei is indeed going to skip those 2 arcs and never go back to redo them. It is hard to say, but what does the history of the modern industry show? When the focus shifts, it does not come back. And honestly, thinking from a business perspective, it makes total sense. Why spend resources remaking arcs that already exist in reasonable quality, when you can use those same resources to create new content, sell new products, new games, new box office revenue? I think they will run the Dragon Ball Super remake as it is, and then air the Black Saga and the Tournament of Power arc the same way they were before, because the initial issues were more in the first sagas. Toei is a company, and companies think about financial returns. New content generates far more return than a remake, but that is exactly why this decision hurts. Because the fan, the one speaking to you right now, and probably you who are watching, wanted the complete package. We wanted to be able to show our children 5 years from now the entire entire Super Saga remastered, from start to finish, without needing to jump to the old, poorly animated 2017 version, just to see Goku Black appear for the first time. That was the dream, and that dream, at least for now, seems to have been left behind. But do not leave your dream behind.